Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Life by Design podcast. On this week's episode, I talk with Rory Warnock. Rory is a performance coach, consultant, speaker, ambassador, athlete, and also an author. He specializes in breathwork to help individuals and teams enhance wellness, focus, and performance. In this week's episode, we spoke about the highs and the lows of endurance races, challenging yourself, looking for love, anxiety, breath work, and much, much more. Enjoy the episode. Rock hard, Rory Warnock. Welcome to the podcast.
It's good to be here, Blake. Always nice to see your face.
Um, Rock hard's a nice intro. Do you want that on the snippets, the podcast snippets that you've self-proclaimed recently?
Where's that come from, by the way? Have I said that to you? Because I've got one friend who calls me Rock Hard Rory, and it was his birthday recently, and I sent him a bottle of champagne to the restaurant that he was at, and I asked the lady to give him the champagne and say it's from Rock Hard, and he said
Yeah.
that he's absolutely pissing himself laughing. Have I been saying that to you? That's really weird.
No, you signed in
Oh
today's
yeah.
podcast because I was taking the piss out of you last week. So you've signed in today's. So when my assistant's like, "Who's Rockhard Rory?" because it comes up on her calendar as well, I was like, "That's a fucking clown that I know who's a friend of mine. Ignore."
I must have been feeling funny at the time. I must have been
You were. Well, you are funny at times.
yeah, at
75%
times.
of the time. We could talk about rock hard abs. We could talk about breath work. We could talk about endurance events. There's plenty of spots that we could go today. But before we even enter any of those conversations, can you give the guys a 60 to 90-second spiel of who you are and what's got you to where you are today?
I'm Rory. I am originally from Scotland, from Edinburgh, came to Sydney in 2019. I love to support individuals and teams through evidence-based breathing tools and techniques. I really like helping people. I get a lot of value out of that, and hopefully others get value from it too. I enjoy challenging myself in long distance races. I'm emotional. I enjoy that side of me. I like to be vulnerable. I like to have good conversations with good people. And I like to live a big life. I like to travel. I like to explore. I like to party. I like music. Um, yeah, that's me.
You know what? In 170 episodes of the podcast, I don't think I've heard anyone say in their intro that I'm emotional and I'm vulnerable. That's fascinating. What made you want to include that? Just to give the listeners context,
Well, I think it's sorry after you, like
Rory is the most sarcastic friend I have on planet Earth. And yet he comes into this podcast episode and talks about how he's emotional and vulnerable. To which I had to last night let him know via our text of like when he needs to let me know when he's been serious because otherwise I just take the piss out of every single thing he says and he does the same as me. I'm like, dude, you are emotional at times, but I can't read between the writing. So elaborate because this is important for me as well as the listeners.
no, I think with you and I, with our friendship over the years, I think we're very good at switching between personalities. You know, when we're
Mm,
serious and having a serious, real conversation, or when we're just being stupid blokes and just being idiots. And
mm.
I think you get that side out of me that not everyone does, and I feel like I can lean into and fall into the stupid, immature, funny Rory very well with you, but also when we have conversations like this, I can also drop into the more serious, more vulnerable Rory. To answer your question, why I said that during my intro, you asked who I am or give a 60 to 90 explanation of who you are. I think often people explain what they do and their job defines who they are, but I don't think my job defines who I am. You know, when I am working, you probably don't see the emotional, vulnerable side to me. Um, but I think that is a key part of my personality that I have in the past shied away from but I like that. And I think, truthfully, I think I was having a conversation with a friend this morning about being vulnerable. So maybe that's kind of top of mind as well. So I like these conversations with you, and I think being vulnerable and an emotional man is pretty important in the modern world.
Where did you learn the lesson, I am who I am, not what I do? Because that is an excellent lesson. One of the OGs that I heard it from, I've forgotten his name now, is Ben Crow, actually, and he's very big on teaching that to all his athletes. So where did you learn that, and how has that influenced races that potentially haven't gone according to plan or have gone according to plan? How does that show up in your life?
Truthfully, I don't know. I think we consume, well, I consume a lot, and I can't remember where I hear certain things from. And I'm never going to say I make these things up. They probably come from somewhere, whether or not I'm aware of where it's come from or whether or not I remember where it's come from. But I do often think about that consciously, where, you know, the work that I do does not define who I am, and that is not my identity. I am more than that. Often, I think, just we like to put people in brackets and in buckets, right? Oh, Rory's a breathwork coach and competes in these ultra marathons. That's who he is. So there's a lot more to me. I have many, many layers. Some good, some probably not so good. But I think it's a key understanding that what you do, your day to day, your income, your career, your path does not define you, and it's not your identity. So I can't, I'm familiar with Ben Crow. I've probably consumed some of his work in the past. Maybe it's him. I really can't remember, to be honest, mate. I don't know.
Do you find that easy to embody um, when it comes to like certain events? Because there's still parts of it I struggle. Like even the week at the time of recording, we're leading into High Rocks. Are you doing a full? Are you doing a half marathon?
In Goldie, I'm in the full.
Full. So there's still a little part of me that spent 15 years in the fitness space. So there's still a little attachment to that identity of like, oh, there's a certain outcome that I want in this race. But is there any processing that you do in the lead up to a race to remind yourself that you are who you are, not what you do? Is there anything that you go through just to take away some of the potential attachment?
Not really, man. I feel pretty relaxed going into these things. Especially marathons, for example, I don't actually have a time in mind. If I did have a time in mind, maybe that would cause a bit more anxiety and a bit more stress and fear. But I'm going into this race feeling quite relaxed. Maybe the only people that hold it to my identity are the people who view it, as opposed to myself. And I think I know myself better than anyone else, right? And I'm the only one who has to live in my head, for better or for worse. And I know there's much more to me, to Rory Warnock, than a guy who runs. It's just, I probably run for like 8 hours a week. How many hours are in the week? It's just a very small chunk of what I do and a small chunk of my personality and what I enjoy. And then there's a lot of other layers that come with that as well.
Is there any stories that you need to tell yourself when a race doesn't go according to plan around that? Do you find a level of disappointment? Are you able to move through it quite quickly, especially if you do have attachment to a time or getting a race done, things like that?
Yeah, I guess to give some background to some of the listeners here, I've competed in over 15 ultra marathons now, so quite a few, from 50 kilometers to 250 kilometers. Last year, I DNF'd, so I didn't finish two races. One was in a 100K race, and I dropped out around 53K, which was just terrible. The other was a 100 miler, so 160K, and I dropped out at 116K. So I had a real internal challenge at the end of last year when I really considered, is this for me? Am I actually good at this? Can I do this? Or am I just telling myself that I have the ability when I don't? So I trained harder. I was more disciplined, more committed, more focused. I had to gain a bit of grit as well, mental grit. Then when I competed and completed the 100K in May, that was kind of confirmation bias and just reminding myself that I can do this, that I am good at this. it's not who I am, but I had to remind myself that the harder that I work, the more focused that I am, the more committed that I am, I will get the reward and the results that I want. Um, but it was a really challenging moment last year, DNFing on 2 long races and just contemplating, maybe this shit isn't for me.
Do you? It's so interesting on the commitment front. So do you find a way? So obviously you did the 100Ks. What is it now? A month and a half ago.
Yep.
Um, do you find it like a dance of being extra committed and extra dialed in, but with less attachment? Because for a lot of people, with more commitment comes more attachment, which is a very slippery slope. But is there mottos that you need to remind yourself of? Is there the balance between, not putting all your eggs in the one basket of this race, which a lot of people identify around, whether it's a, career position or a race? Like what's the internal dialogue? Because I know you're very um, poetic almost at times in describing the inner lining of your psyche, which I find fascinating.
I think the mantra that I often think about with these races, having experienced, having 5 years of experiences, sorry, my mantra is have fun. Have
Mm,
fun. Remember to have fun. Because at the end of the day, that's the fucking point. Like I go out to do these things to have fun, to get in nature, to challenge myself, to dig deep. As we get older, we often compete less and less, which is one of the reasons that I do like high rocks. I probably wouldn't ever compete in it. It's not for me, but I do like the concept of it. It's a lot of people can do it, but I think uh, moving forward, keep moving forward. I've got forward written on my arm, so I've got that as a reminder. Um, but the main mantra, Blake, is just to have fun. Because I can get very in my own head, as I think we all can, especially if we compete in certain activities or races or whatever it is. But just to remind myself that the point is to enjoy it and not to bully myself. But it is quite funny though. I've got a YouTube video coming out, about a 15-minute documentary of that race. It should be out any minute. And I've watched a couple of versions now, a couple of edits back and forth, and I didn't remember the pain that I was in. And I think you'll find this quite fascinating from a psychology perspective. Whilst watching this documentary and watching myself in the race at the checkpoints, how emotional I am, crying, what I'm saying does not connect and reflect to how I feel now after the race. So all that challenge that I went through for 13 and a half hours just completely diminished after the race. So the work and the
mm,
effort and the sacrifice and the discomfort during, then as soon as I succeed, and it's probably a bit of socially acceptable self-harm as well that's involved there, then as soon as I succeeded in what I wanted to do, i.e. cross the finish line, I'm like, hey, fuck, I love this. I'm like, do you? So I've got another 100K race in 3 weeks.
mm. It's very different. Shout out to all the mums. Please don't chew up my words and think that they're in the same category. But mums have this around birth.
Yep.
Like Shani's birth was pretty fucking gnarly, and it just disappears. There's definitely there's a biological thing that's going on. I can't remember the name of it, but that is fucking like how amazing. Whether it's a 100K race for you, whether it's the birth of my daughter and Shani's experience, that pain and what you've just been through just like falls away, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm good to go again. That's amazing.
It is, but I don't. I'm still trying to work it out, and I'm still trying to understand it. You know, am I addicted, or am I leaning into the perceived success? And am I attached to that? I want that again. I want to feel like I'm succeeding. I want to feel like I'm moving forward. Is that my attachment, or do I? Which I think what I'm about to say, I do believe this is true. Do I just enjoy the experiences, the highs and the lows? Do I enjoy feeling? Because I know I do. For 10 years now, I've had many highs and many lows, and I know with every low will come a high. And eventually with every high will come a low. And I'm here for the journey. And I, as weird and maybe sadistic as that sounds, it kind of gets me excited. And even going into these races, I'm not an elite runner. Um, I know it's going to hurt, but I almost welcome it. I'm almost
Mm.
excited and waiting for it. And then when it hurts, I'm like, okay, we're here now. Deal with it. You fucking chose to be here. It was your choice. You paid a lot of money to be here. No one's paying you to do it. Get on with it. Make it work. Make your way through.
Do you not think of that that hurt as like being alive? Because when I think about the races that I've done, when I think about even the first 10 weeks with Shani and I, and the fact that I cry probably every 2 days about Frankie, like that for me is life. That is being alive. And for an hour on Saturday or Sunday, whatever day I do high rocks, that will be like a very uncomfortable hour. But for me, it's like a reminder that you're alive. Do you get the same thing?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what I'm referring to about leaning into sensation and leaning into feeling. You know, there's a big difference between living, existing, and kind of being alive,
Mm,
right? And I never want to merely just exist and just plod along in life, and live this mediocre life here. I enjoy the highs and I welcome the lows, because as I mentioned, eventually from a low will become a high again. It's Yeah, it's just trying to channel it into a positive way and not into a negative way, because anything to an extreme, even if it's health, fitness, wellness related, anything to an extreme could more so than not become a negative, right? So it's just making sure that it's channeled in a positive way. I mean, I'd rather be addicted to running than cocaine, but you know what I mean.
yeah.
It's still trying to find the balance where it's healthy, and it doesn't become unhealthy. But yeah, the alive factor excites me. Tell me about yours. What are you excited for? What are you scared for High Rocks?
Well, I think there's still a little bit of attachment for me because there is a certain time that I want to get. I feel very comfortable that I'll get a PB, which is, at the end of the day is really all that matters. But in the back of my mind, there's two things: there's a PB and there's going sub 60. Um, and then I guess the third thing is making sure, albeit I probably should be more conscious of this, that I don't want to let my partner down, Ander, who you know, because he's in top nick, and I want to make sure that I am in good top nick. I think where I get to with a lot of these races now is a trusting that I've done the work. Like I set myself a 90-day challenge 85 days ago, and I've missed one session, which I would have loved to clean slate, but I just remember having one session. I was like, fuck, I missed it. I just didn't feel up to it at all. So I just come back to the fact that I've done the work and that's been programmed. And is that good enough to get me the result? I don't know, but I've done exactly what's been scripted. And the result, assuming that I do all the right things on the day, should take care of itself now. So I come back to that. I don't know if you have a similar thought in terms of prepping for one of these races.
Massively, mate. It's trusting the process, and I view the race as maybe 30 or 40% as the full thing. And then I
Mm,
view I view 60, 70% the training. I find training hard.
mm,
It's currently pissing it down in rain. I've got to go for a run at some point today. I know that whether
mm,
I go outside, whether I try and find a treadmill somewhere, but I will run. And that's effort. It's much more comfortable sitting on my sofa in my warm apartment, drinking coffee and chilling with my dog. That's easy. I don't jump out of bed frothing to go for a run. My body's sore. Life is busy. But just knowing that you've put the work in is really rewarding. It's one thing getting to the start line, and you'll know this as well with all the races you've done in the past, and with High Rocks. One thing getting to the start line, and it's another thing finishing the race and
mm,
completing it. And it's also just touching on your point on time. I think one of the reasons I really enjoy trail running, or long distance running, whatever you want to call it, is not many people are attached to the time. So, for example, if I run Sydney Marathon, which I will, and Gold Coast Marathon, generally speaking, most people say, "Oh, what time did you get?" You know,
mm,
and to be quite honest, I don't give a fuck.
mm,
But then if someone, if I go do the Guzzler, this 100K race, people will say, "Oh, how was it? Did you enjoy it?" Because no one understands the time attached to it, because there's elevation, there's technical parts, there's all sorts. So I like the questions that come with trail running compared to road running, where it's, did you enjoy it, as opposed to what time did you get?
Mm. Who's supporting you on the Guzzler?
Greg, coach.
Pearson.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was your coach till you posted about him the other day. Legend.
What are you on about, mate? I introduced him to him, didn't I?
Maybe actually.
Yeah, mate.
I'm trying to. I'm getting him on the podcast. Actually,
Mate,
I'm
he's a legend. He's been my coach since
legend.
2020.
Oh
He's
yeah.
the reason I got into running.
Oh,
Like,
good
so
man.
he messaged me. He slid into my DMs in 2020 after I was talking about nasal breathing for running, and he messaged me just out of the blue saying, "Hey man, I'm a running coach. I like what you're talking about. Do you want to grab a coffee and talk about breathing?" I was like, "Fucking hell,
Mm.
so let's do that." Caught
Yep.
up, and then he said to me, "Oh, I'm running this 100K race called UTA 100 in the Blue Mountains." I was like, "That sounds wild. Like, whoa, I didn't even know that was a thing. Never heard of ultra marathon running." And he's like, "Oh, why don't you do it? I'll train you." I was like, "I could never do that. I've only ran one half marathon in the UK like 2 years ago. This was, now 7 or 8 years ago." And he said, "No, no, I'll train you." So he trained me for 3 or 4 months and ran the first 100K race and then became hooked.
He's a Jedi. Looking forward to chatting with him. It's funny those topics where you're like, how can you make this interesting? But he finds a way to, with his Instagram, shout out to Greg Pearson, he finds a way to make running really interesting on his Instagram, which is excellent.
And I
Uh,
also think, because, sorry, Blake, just to finish up here, I also think because he's just a good bloke. He's a
yeah.
genuine, decent lad, and
Mm,
there's no bullshit with him. He
mm,
is he is who he is. He doesn't try to be anyone he's not,
mm,
and that's clearly connected with a lot of people, and he's blown up on social.
mm. Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of times the highs and the lows. How have the highs and lows changed for you in the last, say, 5 years? Because I've kind of known you 5-ish years. And how has your management of the lows changed in the last 5 years?
I mean, I'm the happiest I think I've ever been now, which is kind of scary.
Mm,
Um, I think what helps me feel the highs and come out of the lows is purpose, it's passion, it's meaning, it's direction, ensuring that I'm doing something that I enjoy. And right now, there's just so many fun, exciting projects, and I know I like to create. I like to coach, and that's will always be my kind of day to day and support people. But I love creating things, and there's just a few little projects that I'm enjoying at the moment, and I'm getting a lot of stimulation out of that. Getting out of bed 5:30 in the morning, where a lot of the time I'll be rubbing my eyes and struggling to get out of bed at 7. So, and I feel that's a key contributing factor to my happiness, is if I'm ready to get out of bed at 5:30 and I'm jumping out excited to get on my laptop and excited to jump on calls and have conversations. So I think the purpose aspect is pretty important. Lifestyle is another key one. Coming to Australia, living by the beach, being in nature, having a slower pace of life, having more autonomy and freedom over my day to day. I love that. I think that's incredibly beneficial to health and happiness. And then just relationships too. I feel really comfortable and confident and at ease and peace with my friendships. I don't have a girlfriend or a wife, but I love my mates, and I feel very safe and comfortable with them. We can have open, honest conversations. I know where I stand with them. They know where I stand. Uh, so I think it's just, you and I, for example, Blake, we can have these serious conversations either on a podcast or out with a podcast. I know I can call you if I needed for anything, but I know I could also slag you off, like, and
mm,
vice versa. And I think that's
mm,
we spoke about it before in another podcast, but I think I like that. And life gets serious, right? It gets really serious. And I think I definitely have this young kids, I wouldn't say immature, but just young playfulness in me. And there needs to be a bit of a laugh in my life as well. Hence one of the reasons I like trail running. I just feel like a child again, and I like to play in the bush or on the side of the mountains and see horizons and views. So yeah, man, I think the key contributing factors to my highs would be lifestyle, habits, behavior, purpose, passion, meaning, direction, connection, relationships, friendships.
I'm going to give you an equation then based on what you said. Because I've changed my mind over the last kind of 5 to 6 years on depression. And I think we as a society have underestimated the significance of the environmental factors. We're thinking it's a chemical imbalance, etc. And what I've seen with people struggling with mental health is I take them through the 6 Ps, albeit I've just updated to a 7th. So I want to see if you can pick any holes in it in terms of what I'm missing. Performance, all things health and fitness. Personal growth, your own self mastery, your own evolution, etc. Purpose, which you mentioned there. Profits, because if you don't have money, life is really stressful. Partnership or partner, and now I've put parenting in there as a new parent. So a relationship, intimate relationship. People, and then the 7th one is play. So travel, new experiences, etc. Now you had lifestyle in there, which I tie into purpose because I think you need to create a life that has got the freedom, flexibility, autonomy, etc. Can you pick apart anything that I've missed in my 6 and now 7 Ps?
I think it's pretty good, man. I mean, it's very, very similar to what I mentioned, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much bang on.
Um, I don't think you need them all,
No.
truthfully. You know, for example, I don't have a huge amount of money in the bank account. I'm definitely still going kind of week to week, month to month, and I'm aware of that. And this is something that's actually been on my mind recently, where I've actually found it quite fascinating, knowing that I don't have a huge amount of money in the bank, but I'm still pretty happy. Like, and it's just because of the projects that I'm working on, I feel confident with them, and I feel like there will be that return financially to bring in a bit more profit. And I don't have a partner, you know, so that I think it is important. And you know, if anyone's listening, I am single, so
He
that
is.
so I think
Between you
that
and Genoa, I try to feed you guys some like love.
keep trying. So no, I would agree, man. I think that's a really nice list. And it's definitely a nice little framework that I've had to learn the hard way. And I think you're a great coach, and you and I became friends through you as a coach, and then obviously just on the back of that. So I think having a coach and having someone, a mentor, just help guide you through when you're early 20s can be so important.
Are you seriously though? But are you ready for new love? Because I was obviously there when you went through the breakdown of your last relationship. You had lots of time to yourself now. Are you actually looking for love now? Jeez, I've really thrown you in the fucking deep end here, haven't
I was just trying to enjoy silence for a bit of impact.
I?
Honestly, man, I don't know because, you know, truthfully, I can get so much fucking done on my own.
Mm.
So much done, which I'm currently really enjoying. I don't feel any pressure to be progressing personally in life yet. You know, I'm not in a hurry to be having kids. You know, I'm not 48 years old like you are. So so I've got a bit more time on my hands. Um, I'm my days really revolve around my dog, training once or twice a day, and just working. And currently, where I'm at, over the last 6 months anyway, this year, life feels good and life feels fun, and I'm happy. And it's not always this way. So maybe I'm scared to ruffle the feathers. When you're in a good spell and things are progressing in a positive way, maybe I have a bit of fear of, I don't want someone to come in and change that.
Mm.
But I'm also so selective of who I'm going to let into my life, and who I'd want to go into their life.
Does it feel restrictive for you based on what I'm hearing there? Because a lot of relationships are like that's the reality, and that's a lot of people won't talk about the restrictions that come with relationship. Does it feel like, as you're saying that and as you're talking through it, it feels restrictive to your relationship? Is there any
I
truth in that?
I feel a relationship would restrict what I'm currently doing. Yes,
Mm,
I could be wrong. I could have a bit of past history and
mm,
trauma, for no better word, attached to that.
mm,
Um, Hence why I said, said woman who comes into my life would have to complement it, and
mm,
vice versa. I'd have to complement their life. Um, I'm just aware that, especially when I will meet someone, I want to give them everything, and I
mm.
want to give them my time, my love, um, my mental emotion, my emotions too, and that will just take up a lot of time and space. So to answer your question, I'm probably not ready yet.
Mm.
I'm happy with where I am, but when will I be ready? I don't know. I don't know.
It's fascinating listening to you say that, because I feel like prior to Shani, I had the exact same belief system um, around what would it take away from me in terms of time, focus, etc. Um, and again, I come back to, I think in a large portion of relationships, that is the reality, and that was the reality that I was fearful of. But to come through now 4 years and not feel any sense of restriction, loss of freedom, etc. Um, yeah, I'm more planting the seed. I think of people like you, obviously one of our good girlfriends, Danny Berzerg, SJ, Genoa. Um, I think about you guys regularly. Does that feel good?
Yeah, what are you doing with your time?
I put the little pause in there just for effect. Um, I think about you guys as kind of, the top echelon of friendships that I've got, or people in my world that are single. Um, and I often think about this narrative of, oh, you should hurry up that process, or you should settle down, etc. And I think people like you guys shouldn't, because I look at the landscape of relationships, and I wouldn't want any of you guys to feature in 90% of the relationships that are out there. And for that reason, I would be super encouraging, albeit, I know Janelle's had his moments, SJ's had her moments. Janelle's had his moments, and I haven't spoken to you that much about it. They've had moments where they're like wanting to kind of move the process along. But I don't think you guys deserve to be, I don't think anyone should, but like you guys as my top crew should be in wasteful relationships. So that's what I think about when I'm alone at night.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. And to kind of play devil's advocate on what I've said, or to contradict what I've just said, I look at you and Shani, and again, you're both in my mind quite a bit. And then I look at my friend Luke and Ellie, then I look at my friend Cal and Billy, and there's definitely a bit of envy there. And I'm like, oh fuck, like you guys get to share everything with each other, and I'm just fucking sitting here alone. Like, cool. And I travel a lot, and I get to do some fun things, and it's often on my own. And I often think I would like to do that with someone, and I would enjoy having uh, sharing these experiences with another person who I love. But I'm not desperate. I'm not hurrying anything, and it's got to work. Yeah, it's a funny part of life, isn't it?
What a great position for you to be in, and what a powerful position for you to be in, again, which a large portion of society isn't, where you love your life and they become the cherry on top. Because there's an over index for a lot of people of thinking that their partner's going to solve all their problems, whereas you just get to live this fucking epic life, and the sweetheart that comes on, and then down the track, kids, whatever that looks like. Again, that's been fascinating, because I don't know the world that you see kids in, but the world that I saw them in was not very positive. I was like, fuck, this kid's going to take away a lot. And prior to having Frankie, I was excited to have a family and share, a little human with Shani, and raise a human. But I also just saw it in such a negative light. But I was like, oh, okay, dude, Like the richness that she brings every day is beyond. Like you kind of wonder what life was for before a little human comes in. It's fucking unbelievable. So I'm excited for that phase for you as well.
Yeah, yeah. I actually feel a little bit emotional when you're speaking about it
Yeah,
in
I'm
that way.
tearing
Where,
up.
yeah, because I'm so happy for you for one. Um, but there's more envy, I think, and I hate feeling this way to any of my mates, but there's more envy attached to having a child than having a partner, if that makes sense. I would love to
Mm.
have a kid. And I think I will be a good dad, and I would like to have a little kid. But it has to be with the right person, and it all has to work. And I don't know when that would be. Um, and then there's, again, playing devil advocate, maybe there is a small part of me is thinking, oh fuck, like everyone's progressing in their personal life, and here's me just like fucking pounding emails. It's like what actually matters, and I know the things that really matter to me are love, connection, meaningful connections, and that often is with friends, family, partner, kids.
Mm.
And I guess I'll put the question on you. Has Frankie coming into your life, has it changed your mindset on anything?
Um, I'm trying to ground myself. Like everything and nothing at the same time, which is a weird thing because everything for us goes back to well, for us, we've been really intentional because we loved our life so much before. So just about everything that we had in our world before, date nights, weekly check-ins, all the things that made our relationship really good, regular catch-ups with friends are all back in now. Like, so we've gone back, but everything just feels fuller and richer, like everything. And there's a stronger there's a stronger desire within me to be a better provider, protector, man, husband, father. Like that was always there. And you've known me long enough. You've seen pretty much Shani in my whole relationship. The way in which Shani just radiates in the world has always been this incredible motivation for me to be a better person. She doesn't have to say anything. She doesn't have to do anything. She just gets to be her. And that to have two of those women now in my life just 10x's my desire to be better. It's just like, and that's what I find really interesting about a lot of relationships and potentially even some of the movements that are going on. There's a lot of like a bashing and forcing of men to be a certain way, whereas these two beautiful souls are just them being them. And that is the inspiration, motivation, desire that I have every day to be like the best version for me and provide them with the very best that I can. They don't need to do anything. They just are.
Do you believe when someone finds the right person, whether it's a man finding their partner or a woman finding their partner, does that person get the best out of the other?
100%. But not. But here's the thing, and this is where I think a lot of people are mistaking things. Not through force,
Natural.
natural, dude. Look at like you spend enough time with Shani. Look at just the way that she like magnetizes life in her radiant feminine essence. I don't reckon a bloke needs more motivation than just the pureness of her being. And then Frankie, this little human who her, her whole existence depends on us. Like what a fucking gift. What a privilege and what a responsibility. Like a lot of people don't like the thought of responsibility. What an honor. And yes, it's a responsibility, so fucking step up. But her whole life, especially in this first 7 years, but well beyond that, comes down to Shani and I. Could you possibly need any more motivation to get your shit together than realizing that a human is going to feed off everything that you do and don't do?
You said You said this has motivated you even more to be better, to be the best you can be. What has changed in that way since she's been born?
Well, there's a couple of pieces that I haven't been able to get to the bottom of in terms of, I'll call them dysfunctional behaviors. And you've known me long enough to know that I do a lot of work, but I also, consciously or unconsciously, I'd say it's more an unconscious thing, did a lot of the work that suited me. Whereas when you finally make a decision to dive into the darkest cave, the one that you've been avoiding or the one that was a blind spot, that's when the real work starts. So Shani, for the last 4 years of us dating, has seen me do a ton of work. And Genoa saw me do a ton of work between my ex and Shani to understand relationships and to show up better. But the hardest work has been the work that I've been doing over the last 9 months, of which I think probably only Genoa and Shani know. Like, I haven't really voiced it, and I don't feel the need to voice it at this stage. And maybe there's a part of me that wants to get through it before I voice it, and maybe that's a piece on me. But like, we've all got that dark cave that we're not prepared to explore.
I agree. There's definitely parts of me and who I am and how I behave and how I think that I haven't addressed
Give
yet.
us one of them. I know one of them, but like, give us one that that people might not know, or it's not that obvious. You don't have to go to your darkest if you don't want to, but like, what's the one where you're like, oh, I should probably get to that, and it just keeps getting pushed back or gets pushed aside?
There's definitely like um I definitely have challenges that stick with me from childhood.
Mm,
I don't want to say too much because I
mm,
generally haven't really spoken to anyone about it. But there are challenges that I've had that have stuck with me since childhood that I don't
mm,
really speak to anyone about. There's only maybe one person in my life who knows about that kind of stuff. It's not horrific stuff. It's just kind of shaped me for in certain ways for who I am now. That I haven't really addressed. I haven't uh, confronted people. I haven't spoken to people during therapy. Therapist has recommended that I have spoken to. I have The therapist has recommended that I speak to certain people, family members, etc. And I've just never wanted to. I've never had the balls to, and I've never felt comfortable or confident enough yet. Um, Maybe I will at some point. I'd even say it's been one of the reasons why I came to Australia. You know,
mm,
so there's definitely a challenge there that, as I'm sure you know, Blake, maybe it's a small thing, but over time that small thing has compounded to create a bigger thing. It's like, why do I do what I do? Why do I work so hard? Why do I punish
mm,
myself in certain ways? There's fucking reasons.
mm.
Whether or not we are consciously aware of the reasons, there's always a reason for everything. So that's probably one, without trying to sound too cryptic.
Nah, people will be able to kind of pick up what you're putting down.
Yeah, read between the lines,
Yeah.
people.
I look at it'd be interesting to see how you go, because I look at that. I look at my darkest of cave, and I've known it for enough years. And in the first 3 years of dating Shani, I could get away with it, and it didn't negatively impact our relationship, really, at the core of it. Um, but I look at the moment that we found out we were pregnant with Frankie, there became an urgency to get to the bottom of the darkest cave for me. And again, I could probably get away with it, but I chose, the moment that I knew Frankie was on the way, I chose to attack it. It's like the person who has a weight issue and they keep trying to outrun it. But the weight issue might be sexual trauma or whatever. And you can kind of get away with it because it's not that detrimental, but you also know you're never going to actually get away from it. So I'm still at a place, and I don't want this to come across as too much of a high horse, albeit I'm working through a superior complex that I've got at the moment. Um, but I struggle to understand how you can look your son or daughter in the eyes and say that you're doing everything when you know you haven't entered the darkest of caves. I really struggle. And the darkest of caves could be a gambling issue, you're alcoholic, it could be anything. But when I look at Frankie every day and I look at those, like those eyes of a 10-week vulnerable little human, I think about it every day of getting to the bottom of this piece. And yes, I could potentially continue to outrun it, but choose not to now.
I think some people don't care enough, and
It's
they
a
think
fucking human that you are responsible for. If you don't care enough for a little human and the impact that you're having on them, why are you a parent? And I know that's rough, but that's
no,
how I
but
feel.
yeah, I hear you. But I think what I mean by that is they don't think. I believe that certain people think that their challenges will not rub off on other people, and they just can
Totally
get
get
away,
that.
and they can just get away with it. Um, I also think that people are happier just to sweep it under the rug and just continue as life. But also, to kind of push back on that, we'll never be perfect. There's
Nah.
always going to be something. There's always going to be a challenge, a difficulty, and I think I think it's often just a bit of a push and a pull and a bit of a dance of, can I handle that? Can I regulate that? I still get anxiety at times. I still get my low moments and say situational, what I call situational or circumstantial depression. I still have it, and it comes up over the last sort of 10 years. Um, but I've found tools and mechanisms to regulate it and manage it. I don't honestly like I don't think it'll go away. It's kind of been this way for 10 years. It'd be nice if it went away, but when it kind of pops up, I'm like, oh, nice, you're there again. I'll just deal with it.
Do you attach meaning to anxiety? I only realized I did this about 6 months ago.
Do I attach meaning to anxiety? As in my meaning, personal meaning?
So let me um I don't know enough about anxiety to know if this is a common thing, but I'll just talk it through. So we naturally have thoughts that affect our body and body sensations that affect our thoughts. And what I realized 6 months ago was if I felt any simmering anxiety, my mind went straight to a wound of which I claimed brought on the anxiety. So I'll give you an example, and I'll be interested to know if this happens with you. Um, I'll say I've had, but I still have a little bit, a friendship wound. And what I noticed is that when I feel anxiety in my body, my mind goes to like a friendship problem. Nothing's changed. Friendships are all good. It's like my anxious attach kind of comes to light. I'm like, oh fuck, there must be a problem in my friendships because there's no other area of my life that's really like challenged at the moment. Previously, if I had anxiety that come up, I would attach it to a relationship, but that's so settled that it doesn't show up. So I instantly go to there must be something wrong with the friendship. And over the last 6 months, I've been able to notice that pattern and go, dude, you're just experiencing anxiety and you're trying to attach meaning to it. Do you attach meaning to anxiety or are you more evolved than I am and you just sit with it?
No, neither, to be honest. I wouldn't say I'm more involved in it, but I wouldn't say I sit with it. I definitely try and take action on it. I think
Mm,
action is often the anecdote to anxiety. I think it's a generally, I think it's a bit of a spiritual, sort of meditative, sort of yogi thing term to say, I'll just, sit with the feeling. It's like, fuck that. Like, I don't want to sit
mm,
with it. It feels fucking rough. Like, I'd rather move it. And generally speaking, a bit of breath work, a bit of training, a bit of running will help move that anxiety. It feels like stuck negative energy, genuinely. And movement or breath really helps with that. I mean, you know me very well, but I think about things in quite a deep way often, and sometimes anxiety just comes up. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Like, I don't know what is causing that. I work's good, relationships are good, family are good. I've got some money in the bank. Like things, boxes are being ticked, and I just get this feeling, and it can be crippling. Often anxiety for me will will be connected to fear,
Mm.
as opposed to um, so if I'm about to present, and this is a standard one, right? You know, if I'm going to present in front of a big group and I'm scared I fuck up, or I'm scared I stutter too much. I know I stutter, but you know, more than usual. If I'm going to go on a date, you know, something like that, and you just get that fear, that anxiety, that stress. I would say that's generally where it comes up, and I think over the last few years, specifically over the last 2 years, I've definitely been doing more to challenge myself more, which is creating more anxiety. But then I'm able to regulate it and sit with it. Sometimes it gets so crippling, I feel like running away, or I feel like just canceling, you know, or just not doing it. As you know me very well as well. You
I
know,
didn't want to say anything, but
the
but you
classic
led yourself
avoider.
into it.
It's and it can be crippling, and you know, it can be really really uncomfortable. But then again, just to kind of finish this little monologue, once I finish that thing that was causing the anxiety, the reward feels incredible. You know, it's that achievement factor or that personal growth or that success. You know, say I speak in front of a group. You know, Australian Fashion Week. You know, I hosted a breathwork session at the beginning of a show during Australian Fashion Week. I was absolutely shitting myself. You know, walking out in front of 300 people who were probably going to judge me and judge the practice. But after it, I was absolutely buzzing. You know, it was like a natural high. So there's definitely a bit of attachment to anxiety, fear, but then leaning into it for the greater good.
I could ask you this question off air, but I'll just ask you on air instead, just for my own education as well.
I might not answer it though.
what what goes on in your mind when you go into
However good sentence or question begins. Right. Come on. Get on with
what
it.
goes on in your mind when you go into your anxious avoidance state and you go into avoidance? Because here's my thought. I would think that as one of my closer mates, that you would be able to voice the anxious avoidant state that you're in, and then everyone's at peace. Whereas you just go MIA, or you write cryptic messages. But what's the inner dialogue for you as an anxious avoidant when you go MIA? Because maybe there's other people on planet Earth that have a similar trait and they're going to understand this better when you explain your behavior.
Firstly, I'm not alone. Thank you very much. This is definitely a thing that people have.
It's
Um,
big. I'm a recovering anxious avoidant as
yeah,
well, so
well,
I get
maybe
it. But I'm interested in your take.
maybe you just don't make me feel secure enough. Maybe it's your fault.
That's
I'm going to push it back on you. I'm going to deflect and defend everything. Okay, to answer your question, I mean, obviously, if I knew the answer, I probably wouldn't be doing it. Um, I don't know. I think it's just, I think I get overwhelmed. I get overwhelmed by too many things going on. So I feel like in my head, the easiest thing to do is just to ignore. I'm like, oh, fuck,
yeah.
I'll just deal with it later.
So, Han,
And
let's go back a step.
I know I will deal with it but, and this is selfish, and I understand it's not the right thing to do, but in my head, I'm like, I'll deal with it, but I can't be fucked dealing with it now. I need to get other
Mm.
things off my plate and off my mind, and then I can go back to that.
Do you reckon that, and I'm guessing your mind doesn't go here, do you reckon that it'd be worth sending like a text message or whatever going, hey, I'm super overwhelmed. I'll get back to you in a week, or just something like that? Just, is that, is it too hard to do that in the mind
Nah,
of an anxious avoidant?
I love how much this annoys you as well. It really gets me going. Um, yeah, that would be the sensible thing to do, of course. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that would definitely be the mature, sensible thing would be to send your mate a text saying, "Hey man, just got a bit much going on in the old brain right now. Can't really function. Shut up, and I'll get back to you later."
So this is interesting. This is what I find fascinating. So, what happens in that time? Do you think that the message won't be well received, or you just
Nah,
don't even have capacity to send that message?
that thought to send that message never comes into my mind.
Mm,
But now, obviously, talking to you about it now, that obviously makes sense. Like, yeah.
mm.
But in the moment when I am overwhelmed and there's too much going on in my head, um, and you have a list of priorities, and
Mm,
as selfish as this is, maybe the thing that we are talking about or
wasn't that important.
isn't as
Yeah,
important as an
I'll
event
remember
with
that.
Apple or something like that.
Yeah.
You're not.
So my banter isn't as important as locking in a contract with like Facebook or Apple or Nike or anything like. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying I chase money over friends. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. So
Timestamp that one. No, I mean you get what
that's
I'm
going to be the
saying.
highlight for this episode.
You get what I'm saying. There's always priorities, right? And I get it wrong sometimes. Like I'm sure you do at times too. We're human, and I
Yeah,
definitely do get
I
disheartened.
don't think it's about getting it wrong. I think it's more a case of like like I obviously take the piss out of you a lot as you do me. It's a genuine area of interest to know the inner workings of your psyche in those moments when you go MIA. And as someone who's been there myself, my story in anxious avoidant Blake times was um, a level of shame for thinking that my excuse was lame, e.g., I'm overwhelmed. That was my story, which is different to yours. Like, oh fuck, like they don't care that I'm overwhelmed type. But that was my story. So it's interesting to hear yours.
But I also think I'm historically not great at getting back to people.
Mm,
So my phone now, texts, WhatsApps, and Instagrams are not good. I
mm.
probably have about between 80 and 120 messages I need to get
Oh
back
my
to.
god, it gives me anxiety.
And that's not even emails. Then I've got emails. So
Mm,
I don't have, and I don't post on socials, which I should. Should be a big part of my business, and I
mm,
hardly ever post. I only have so much capacity in my mind and so many hours in a day from 5 when I wake up in the morning till 8 or 9 when I go to bed to do certain things. And the whole priority thing, I probably get it wrong at some point, or I could probably move and shift it in different directions. But I definitely find it challenging at times just to do the right thing, whatever that thing may be.
we haven't spoken about breathwork at all, so I'm just going to give a little flavor at the end, albeit you probably talk about breathwork enough. Um, if someone wanted to start with breathwork, whether it's for their own mental well-being, whether it's for their performance, like just give me a little taste test of where you would even start someone.
I begin by understanding how the individual is breathing at rest. Is it a dysfunctional pattern or suboptimal pattern? Generally, more so than not, probably is. Maybe a bit short, a bit shallow, a little bit fast, using the upper chest, maybe through the mouth. Then we'd move into understanding how to improve how they breathe day to day, every second of every day, 25,000 breaths. I think often with breathwork, people connect it to these wild and wacky techniques, and you see, because obviously things that are a bit shocking sell on Instagram. So you see these wild and wacky sessions, but I'd rather get you walking before running. Um, if you're not breathing correctly every second of every day, nothing's going to fucking change. So we'd learn how to breathe more optimally in a more functional pattern through the nose, lighter, slower, deeper, quiet, reducing the respiration rate, increasing oxygen uptake and delivery, your lung volume, diaphragm function, your heart rate variability, improving decision making, etc., etc. Then we could move into specific techniques like down regulating, like energetic release, like whatever your intention is with breath work. But to answer your question, walk before you run, learn how to breathe properly. It sounds a bit funny, but exact same as food, nutrition. If you're not eating correctly, you're not going to fuel the brain and body as well as you could. The exact same as breathing. If you're not breathing properly, you're not going to be fueling the brain and body as you could.
It actually sounds like you know what you're talking about in that little 2 minute snippet, which is impressive because I don't listen to you that much. You don't listen to me too much, but to hear you just kind of talk almost poetically about breath was quite interesting, I found.
Thanks, man. I'm an elite coach, but you can
For
I'm a bit.
people that want to find out about you, your antics, even potentially work with you on a corporate level, potentially, where's the best spot to send them?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. The best place would probably be my website, rorywarnock.com, Instagram, rorywarnock underscore. Keep in touch. I'm releasing or launching a new business, Hale Studios. So that website will be up and running soon. That'll be specifically purely breathwork, in person and online, education and experiences. My website is more Rory is a coach, consultant, author, athlete, ambassador, etc. But then the Hale Studios will be 100% all breath. There's a few.
What time frame are we talking with this Hale Studios?
Oh, I reckon we'll launch it in about 2 weeks.
Mm.
Yeah, we're looking good. But there's fun stuff happening from now until the end of the year. Got three fairly big things launching that I'm excited for. So keep in touch and hopefully some fun activations coming your way.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Rock Hard Rory.
Peace.